Welcome to Survival Recaps. Today we will be recapping an episode from the series, Supernatural, titled, Bitten. Enjoy and be sure to subscribe. Sam and Dean Winchester, legendary paranormal hunters, are working a case, and while investigating, they walk into an apartment and see blood splattered everywhere. After walking around, they see two dead bodies, one that appears to have been clawed to death, leaving only bits and pieces of the person. And the other was the body of a male, covered in a white sheet. They notice a high-tech computer set up and approach it. It is here that they see a sticky note attached to a laptop with the words, "Play me." They press play and the video starts off with text that says this should never have ended this way. They continue watching and then the video switches to footage of college friends Brian, Mike, and Kate. Brian is filming, and is asking Mike what he should make his film project about. They get distracted by a group of girls in the distance, and the girls realize that Brian is recording them. One of them, who Brian seemed especially drawn to, walks over and Brian throws the camera to Mike. The girl, Kate, walks over with a camera of her own, and surprisingly starts to flirt with Mike, telling him she loves a guy who loves cameras. Brian stands there looking a bit envious, because he knows that he is the guy who loves cameras, not Mike. Later that night we see Kate walking out of Mike's room going towards the bathroom, while Brian sits at his computer lab in the living room. She speaks to him on her way, and after she leaves his sight, he appears sad, and it is clear that he is still affected by her and Mike hooking up. Sometime later, Brian is filming in the cafe again, now with Kate sitting at their table. While Mike is getting food, Brian tells Kate that Mike doesn't actually know anything about cameras. She says she knows, but she's teaching him. Mike returns and asks what the conversation was about, and Kate tells him that she was just talking about how she's teaching her boyfriend about cameras, making it known that the two are a couple now. They then share a kiss as Brian awkwardly moves the camera away. Back at Mike and Brian's apartment, Kate is there and the three of them are recording themselves as they talk about their future goals. Mike says that his goal is to be in the middle of the ocean with Kate by his side, and they share another kiss, causing Brian to have another soured expression. The next footage is of the trio in a literature lecture by Professor Ludinsky on the Lord of the Flies. After class, while outside, a student named Scott bumps into Brian, causing him and his camera to fall to the ground. Mike jumps in his face and the two have words before Scott's friend pulls him away. Mike, Kate, and Brian then began walking to their apartment, when they see police in a large crowd. The area is taped off, and there is a dead body wrapped in white, stained with blood. Brian is interested in the footage for his movie, so he and Kate try to film as much as possible. It is here that they see Sam and Dean arrive, pretending to be FBI. They hear the officers say that the deceased is student Jacob Carter, and it appears he was attacked by an animal. A witness heard growling noises before finding him dead. Back at the apartment, Kate questions Brian's empathy because he seems excited about the murder investigation, but he dodges the conversation because Mike shows up and starts to play a love song for Kate, the one that was playing when they first met. Brian then insists that they go because Mike promised to help him film that night. Mike apologizes to Kate for having to leave her, saying that she knows he is the only person Brian has. They leave and start filming random things around the campus. While walking around they come across Sam and Dean, who just finished speaking with one of their neighbors. Sam is saying that he doesn't think the case is supernatural and Dean is telling him that they just have to dig deeper. They leave, and Mike and Brian continue walking around. Eventually they approach the football field, and surprisingly spot Scott, the bully from earlier that day, making out with a girl. They start to film them for revenge, but then the girl starts to scream telling Scott to get off of her, as if she was being hurt or violated. She then runs away. Scott then spots Brian recording him and starts to chase him, but Mike, who is also recording, starts to shout at him. So he starts chasing Mike instead. After running through the woods for a bit, Mike rests, thinking he's dodged Scott, but then he starts to hear growling noises and becomes terrified, telling Scott to stop playing around. The growls get louder and Mike starts running again. He accidentally drops the camera, and as he goes to pick it up, something jumps at him, pulling him away. Sounds of clawing and growling can be heard in the background as Mike screams for help. When Brian finds Mike, he has blood all over his shirt, and Brian helps him get back to the apartment. When they get Mike back into the apartment, the three are frantic trying to tend to Mike's injuries. When they rip off his shirt, they don't see any wound. The bite mark that was there had completely healed, and this causes Mike to hyperventilate, while Kate tries to figure out if they are pranking her. It is the next day, and Mike wakes up to Brian and Kate by his side. He gets up to go to the bathroom, and when he goes to open the door, he completely rips it off of the hinges. They all stand there in shock. The next footage is of the three of them laughing as Mike holds Kate in the air with just one hand. They then start to theorize about what bit him. Kate thinks it's an alien, saying it would explain the FBI. While Brian researches mutants online. Next we see Brian setting up cameras all over the house, saying that he's going to document Mike's origin story for his project. Brian then approaches Mike and tells him that he also wants to have super strength, and asks Mike if he'll go back into the woods with him, hoping he too will be attacked and become a mutant. Brian says that this will make him cooler and he'll be able to finally have a girlfriend. Mike gets upset and shuts down his request, telling him that there is nothing wrong with who he is. It is now the next day and there is a knock at the door. Brian answers and is shocked to see Sam and Dean. They question Brian about the death of Jacob, and leave their card just in case he hears anything. Kate is recording from the window, and when Brian closes the door, she hears Sam say that they might be dealing with another Mayan god, and then she hears Dean say that the last one they dealt with was terrible. When Kate replays the footage for Brian and Mike, Mike starts to celebrate, calling himself a golden god, as all three of them laugh and joke around. Later that night, Mike is in the bathroom with the camera just admiring himself, when suddenly, his eyes dilate. We hear bones cracking, and then he starts to grow fangs and his fingernails turn to claws. He screams and breaks the mirror. He then goes into the kitchen and starts to eat everything in sight. He runs out of food, and leaves the house to go to the store. On his way back from the store, he runs into Scott and his friends, who start to antagonize him. Mike tells them to back off, and Scott starts to say something back, but Mike suddenly runs away, leaving his groceries on the ground. Scott chases after him into the woods, with his camera in hand. Scott tells Mike to come out and take his beating like a man, and he gets no response. Scott continues to yell, even threatening to go after Kate, when suddenly things get very quiet. Scott hears growling and he starts to get scared. Suddenly Mike appears out of the darkness and attacks Scott. Morning is here, and Kate and Brian are talking about Mike and his transition. Kate says that at first it scared her, but now she likes his extra strength. It is here that Mike shows up, and to their horror, his face and clothes are covered in blood. Mike goes to shower, and Kate asks him what happened. And in a dismayed tone, he tells her that Scott chased him, and he thinks he's killed him.